What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Elementary Season 5, Episode 1, Folie à Deux. At least I think that's how it's pronounced. I don't know. I don't speak French. But anyway, yeah, this was a fairly interesting episode. Not quite what I was expecting because after the end of last season, it felt like up until then, they'd had a pretty interesting storyline going. And even, ending Season 3 going into Season 4, it felt like there was a storyline that they had going. But when Season 4 ended, it felt like there was nothing to talk about. Like everything got resolved. It felt like there was nothing else to talk about. It was kind of disappointing. So I was hoping that they would start off this season with something big and epic to kind of capture the attention again, to say, hey, Elementary's back, and we are back with a bang. And ironically, they are back with a bang because, bombs, explosions, yeah. Puns. Puns are fun. But other than that, I mean, while this episode was interesting, it wasn't quite as interesting as I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be something that possibly would carry on into the season in general, which it didn't really. I wanted it to be a case that, if it doesn't carry on, at least make it one that's really mind-blowing and mind-twisting. You're just like, oh, I can't believe they did. There was a little bit of a twist, but nothing I didn't see coming. Like most of it was fairly straightforward. I don't know. I'm kind of disappointed. It wasn't a bad case by any means, and it wasn't a bad episode by any means. Some of the stuff going on behind the case with Watson and the guy that she helped out in prison, that stuff was interesting. It really did. It was kind of emotional, and the scene at the end, I'll talk about that in a second, was good. But the case itself was not what I wanted. It wasn't as much as I wanted. I wanted it to be more. I wanted it to be big. I wanted it to be something that would really capture my attention and say, I know Season 4 ended kind of disappointingly, but Season 5 is going to be better. But I don't see any of that. And honestly, thinking back now, aside from a lot of Season 1, which was really interesting with the Moriarty stuff, there hasn't been a whole lot that's really been... I guess the stuff with the apprentice that Sherlock took whenever Joan left, the stuff with her and the guy that she escaped from, that got interesting. And then some of the stuff with Sherlock's brother was okay, but not interesting enough. Some of the stuff with Sherlock's father was really interesting, but then they ended it in such a non-interesting way. I feel like the show has disappointed me quite a few times, and I didn't actually realize it until right now. Like, I'm looking back after tonight's episode, I'm thinking, okay, have there been signs of this in the past? And I look back on Sherlock's brother, I'm like, you know what, they probably could have done something a bit more interesting there, instead of just, oh, he's being framed for something and now Sherlock's going to help him out. But they didn't. And then, you look at season, I think it was 3. Yeah, season 3, whenever you got the guy that Sherlock was with doing drugs and stuff, and now that he's rehabbed and this guy is like trying to bring him back in, you could have done something interesting there, and they did kind of, but not interesting enough, and it ended on kind of a note, like Sherlock ended up doing drugs again, but it was kind of like he didn't really even have to because he had beaten the guy. Like if he had not won that case and he had not beaten the guy at his own game, then maybe I could understand it, but nothing really interesting there happened aside from that. And in season 4, most of it felt like it was building up for something really epic with Sherlock and his father and what was going to happen there. And they introduced this new bad guy who's pretty much like the Moriarty from, the books. That Moriarty. It seemed more like him. And then he gets killed off screen. I'm just like, what an anticlimactic way to end this entire interesting season. So all of the signs have been there. And this episode is no different. It's supposed to be something that's going to capture my attention, make me want to watch more of this season. And to be fair, I will, because I do like the show. It's hard to really complain too much about it. Like, from a critical standpoint, I'm saying it should be more interesting, it should be more attention-grabbing because it's the first case, or it's the first episode of a new season. You want something that's going to be like, okay, come watch this show. But from an elementary standpoint, it's pretty much a normal case. I expect cases like this. I expect the emotional stuff in the background like this. It pretty much is what I expect from Elementary and what I enjoy about the show. I just personally think that for season 5, you need to set up something really interesting. Bring back Moriarty, bring in a new villain, bring in something that's going to be really like, oh, I want to watch to see what's going to happen now. Because we don't have anything like that right now. So, I don't know. It doesn't need it, but at the same time, I feel like it would do the show a lot of good and would really make it more engaging and more interesting if you had something like that going on in the background. So that's just my opinion as far as the entire season is concerned. As far as the episode goes, like I said, the case was good by Elementary standards. Not one of the better cases, but you've got a guy who Sherlock sees him at the scene of the crime. There was a bombing, chases him down. He manages to get away. They catch the guy later on using fingerprint stuff, and can't find any evidence. And every time they look for more evidence, there's no evidence, no evidence. And it feels like maybe Sherlock was wrong about this one. But of course, the whole time I'm thinking, well, of course he's not wrong, because I don't think he's ever really been 100% wrong. Like, even when he's been wrong about something overall, he's still got some sort of premise right. Like that was the guy at the crime scene. So at some point I was thinking, well, maybe he won't be the bomber, but maybe he'll have run for a different reason, but that was him, because Sherlock wouldn't be wrong about that. But as it turns out, he's working with the bomber. They catch that guy later. His confession I knew was bogus from the very beginning. I'm just like, yeah, okay, no. This is clearly just a diversion tactic, saying that somebody else is the one helping him, and then saying that, oh, we planted a ton of bombs, down in this area, and people are going to die now, and ha ha ha. I'm just like, seriously, this is obviously a ploy to buy more time for this guy, whatever he's trying to do. And then they find out about, the guy winning the piece of land or whatever that he was trying to sell. And it's just like, oh, so that's why he did it, and they bring him in, jail time, all that good stuff. So, it was up until that moment where the guy confessed, said he had a different partner, and said they planted all these bombs. It was interesting. At that point, it kind of became, okay, I know exactly what's going on now. As far as the Joan and, I can't remember, Shilwell, I think was his name? Something along those lines. I enjoyed that stuff. This show normally does a good job of having some interesting stuff going on in the background, side stories for Joan or Sherlock. And in this one, it was good. You've got Joan who, she's not wishing she had her old job back, but she's getting a little nostalgic because back in those days she used to save lives and help people. Like now she's solving murder, so at that point the person's already gone. She can't help that person. All she can do is get justice for them. She wants to, she's feeling nostalgic for the days whenever she would save lives, and this guy is one of the lives that she saved. Brought him in, had a gunshot wound that was fatal, and she managed to bring him back from the brink of death. And so she sees that, feels nostalgic. And the interesting thing about it is, I thought at first this was going to turn into a thing, like maybe possibly Jones thinking about going back to being a doctor. And at first I was like, really, are we going to do that storyline now, 5 seasons in? She's wanting to go back? Because I'm pretty sure we had a similar storyline, like in the first or second season. Like, do we really have to do this again? But what it ends up being is, Sherlock tells her at the end of this episode, he's like, look, there's other ways to help. Like that. He has a much longer speech than that, but that's pretty much what he tells her. There are other ways to help him than, going and saving lives like you were as a doctor. And so she goes and talks to him, and he had asked her earlier, how did you change? How did you become this detective after being a doctor for so long? And so she goes and says, I wanted to tell you how. You ask other people for help. And she's like, you want to go take a walk and we can talk about some stuff? He's like, sure. And then it shows in his room, and he had a gun. And I don't know, I'm kind of curious what that meant. I don't know if that will be explained later on, like if he'll come back or something. I don't know if he was planning on committing suicide, or if he was planning on going and, like, committing a crime with a gun, or if that just shows that's his life now. He's got a gun hiding in his radiator type thing just in case somebody's trying to roll up and shoot him. Like, I don't know quite what that meant, but it's kind of like she showed up just in the nick of time is how it felt. But, it's nice to see that she does get that moment where she's like, I get to help this guy out. And hopefully it does come back as something later on. Maybe this guy is hiding out from somebody and that's why he has the gun. That could be interesting, but for now, like I said, this episode feels very secluded. It feels like not much of this is going to come back. I thought it would be really interesting to possibly have this bomber end up being much more complex than it seemed at first, but it seems like it's completely done now. Like, it was a very simple plan. This one guy is just this mad bomber, and he's working with this other guy who wants to use his skills to create panic and win a property venture. So, very easy, very straightforward. And overall, like I said, even though I'm disappointed that this isn't going to be some big epic storyline they're setting up for this season, it was a good enough episode to where, because I like Elementary, I enjoyed it. So, you got to go back and forth here. If you're an Elementary fan, you'll like the episode. If you're not an Elementary fan, you'll probably be like, I want more. And even as an Elementary fan, you may still be wanting more. But just, it all depends on, I guess, people's preferences and stuff like that. So, that is why there are comments down below. Let me know what you guys think of this episode. Let me know what your thoughts are on this season. What do you want to see? What do you not want to see? All that good stuff. Let me know. We can discuss and talk about it. Leave a like and subscribe for future Elementary reviews, and I'll see you at the next one. Peace out.